The moment Silas Boone's hand reached for Evelyn Cross on that auction platform, $3 silver hit the wood like gunshots. The whole town went silent. Because the man who threw them wasn't just any drifter, he was Colt Maddox, and in Red Flint, that name meant death. What happened next would shatter a corrupt empire, ignite a war in the frozen mountains, and prove that sometimes salvation comes from the most dangerous places. This is their story. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. The town of Red Flint squatted in the dust like a wounded animal, all crooked buildings and broken promises. It wasn't the kind of place decent people settled. It was where you ended up when everywhere else had spit you out. The saloons never closed, the undertaker never rested, and on certain days when the wind blew wrong, you could smell the desperation hanging in the air like smoke. Evelyn Cross had arrived 3 weeks earlier on a wagon train that limped into town with half its people dead from cholera. She'd left Boston with nothing but a carpet bag and a letter from a cousin who'd promised work out west. The letter turned out to be 2 years old. The cousin had been dead for 18 months. Nobody in Red Flint cared about her story. She'd tried everything, knocked on doors until her knuckles bled, begged the general store owner for work sweeping floors, even stood outside the church, though calling that weather-beaten shack a church was generous, hoping someone would take pity. They didn't. Instead, she'd caught the attention of Marcus Drummond, a snake of a man who ran the boarding house and dealt in things that weren't strictly legal. He'd offered her a room, told her she could work off the debt. She'd been stupid enough, desperate enough, to believe him. The debt never decreased. It only grew. And when she'd tried to leave, Drummond had her dragged to the town square by 2 men who smelled like whiskey and violence. That was how Evelyn found herself standing on a wooden platform in the center of Red Flint on a Tuesday morning with the sun beating down and a crowd gathering like vultures. "Fresh merchandise, gentlemen," Drummond's voice carried across the square. He had the kind of smile that made your skin crawl. Young, strong, clean. Evelyn's hands were bound in front of her. She'd stopped crying an hour ago. Now she just felt numb, like she was watching this happen to someone else. The crowd was mostly men. Some looked curious, others looked hungry. A few had the decency to look uncomfortable, but not uncomfortable enough to object. "We'll start the bidding at $5, Drummond announced. "6, someone shouted. "7. Evelyn closed her eyes. She'd read about things like this happening in places where law didn't reach. She'd told herself America was civilized now, that the stories were exaggerations. She'd been wrong. $10! The voice came from the back. Silas Boone pushed through the crowd like he owned it, which, in a way, he did. Boone ran the Lucky Strike Saloon, the largest building in Red Flint. He was a big man, running to fat now, but still strong. Mean eyes, meaner reputation. Evelyn had heard stories about the women who worked in Boone's saloon, about what happened to them, about the ones who disappeared. 15, Boone said, stepping closer to the platform. He looked at Evelyn the way you'd look at a horse you were thinking of buying. "She'll do," Drummond grinned. $15. Anyone want to go higher? The crowd had gone quiet. Nobody bid against Silas Boone, not unless they were stupid or suicidal. 15 going once. Evelyn's throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to run, but the ropes held and her legs wouldn't move. 15 going twice. A horse's hooves clopped on the hard-packed dirt. Slow, deliberate. The crowd parted. The rider was tall, sitting easy in the saddle like he'd been born there. He wore a dusty coat the color of storm clouds, a wide-brimmed hat that shadowed most of his face, and a gun belt that looked well used. His horse was a big roan gelding, the kind of animal that could run all day and still have fight left. The man didn't dismount. He just sat there, looking at the platform. "Auction's almost over, friend," Drummond said, his voice tight. "Unless you're bidding—" $3 hit the wooden platform with sharp metallic clinks. They rolled, wobbled, settled. The rider's voice was quiet, rough, like gravel scraping. "I'll take her." Drummond blinked. That's $3. The bid is at $3. The man's eyes were visible now under the hat brim, gray, cold as winter rain. "That's what she's worth to you, maybe less. So take your $3 and cut those ropes." Silas Boone stepped forward, his hand dropping toward his gun. Now hold on just a damn minute. The stranger's hand moved, didn't draw, just rested on his revolver. The movement was casual, almost lazy, but something about it made Boone freeze. You know who I am? Boone's voice had an edge to it. Don't care. I said $15. I'm buying her. No. The stranger swung down from his horse in one smooth motion. He was taller than Boone, broader in the shoulders, and he moved like violence was something he kept in his back pocket for when he needed it. You're not. The crowd backed up. Someone whispered a name, Maddox, and it spread through the square like fire through dry grass. Boone heard it too. His face went pale, then red. Colt Maddox? The hell are you doing in Red Flint? So that was his name. Evelyn had never heard it before, but the way people reacted told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't some drifter. This was someone dangerous. Maddox ignored Boone completely. He looked at Drummond. Cut the ropes. Drummond glanced at Boone, then back at Maddox. His hands shook as he pulled out a knife and sawed through Evelyn's bonds. The moment her hands were free, Evelyn stumbled backward, away from all of them. Her wrists were raw, bleeding in places. Maddox picked up his $3 silver from the platform and held them out to Drummond. For your trouble. Drummond took them like they might burn him. Boone wasn't done. She's mine, Maddox. I bid fair. There's nothing fair about this. Maddox's voice didn't rise. It didn't have to. Go back to your saloon, Boone, while you still can. Boone's hand twitched toward his gun. It was stupid. Everyone could see it was stupid, but pride makes men do stupid things. Maddox moved. 1 second he was standing still. The next, he had Boone by the throat, slammed against a wooden post so hard the whole platform shook. Boone's gun was still in its holster. He hadn't even cleared leather. You're not fast enough, Maddox said quietly, his face inches from Boone's. You're not smart enough. And you sure as hell aren't mean enough. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to walk away. You're going to forget this morning ever happened. And if I hear you've been looking for payback, I'll come back here and finish what I just started. We clear? Boone couldn't speak with Maddox's hand crushing his windpipe, so he just nodded. Maddox let him drop. Boone gasped, clutching his throat, his face purple. The crowd was dead silent. Maddox turned to Evelyn. She flinched, couldn't help it, and something flickered across his face. Not anger, something else. Sadness, maybe. He shrugged out of his coat and held it out to her. You'll need this. It's cold where we're going. Evelyn didn't take it. Where are you taking me? Somewhere safer than here. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got right now. He draped the coat over her shoulders anyway. It was heavy, warm, and smelled like leather and wood smoke. You can leave when you want, but if you stay in Red Flint, you'll be right back on that platform by sundown, probably worse. She knew he was right. Drummond was already watching them with those rat eyes. Boone was getting to his feet, murder written all over his face. I don't know you, Evelyn said. No, you don't. Maddox walked back to his horse, gathered the reins. But you know them, so it's your choice. Come with me, or take your chances here. It wasn't really a choice at all. Evelyn pulled his coat tighter and followed him to the horse. He mounted first, then reached down. His hand was calloused, scarred across the knuckles. She took it anyway, and he pulled her up behind him like she weighed nothing. Hold on, he said. She wrapped her arms around his waist. Had to, or she'd fall, and felt the solid warmth of him through his shirt. The horse turned, and they rode out of Red Flint with the whole town watching. Evelyn looked back once. Boone was standing in the middle of the square, staring after them. Even from a distance, she could see the hate in his eyes. He's going to come after us, she said. Maddox didn't turn around. I know. And you're still taking me? Yes. Why? He didn't answer for a long time. They rode through the edge of town, past the last struggling buildings, out into the open desert that stretched toward distant mountains. Finally, he said, because nobody should be sold like property, and because I could. It wasn't much of an answer, but for now, it was enough. The desert gave way to scrubland, and the scrubland to hills dotted with juniper and pine. They rode for hours. Maddox didn't stop, didn't slow down except to let the horse drink from a creek. Evelyn's legs ached from gripping the horse. Her whole body hurt, actually, from the ropes, from fear, from 3 weeks of not eating right or sleeping well. But she didn't complain. She just held on and watched the landscape change. The sun was starting to sink when they finally stopped at a small camp tucked into a grove of cottonwoods. There was a fire ring, some supplies under a tarp, another horse already tethered there. Maddox dismounted and helped Evelyn down. Her legs nearly buckled when she hit the ground. "Sit," he said, pointing to a log near the fire ring. "I'll get food started." She sat because her body didn't have much choice, watched as he moved around the camp with easy efficiency, building a fire, setting up a small pot of coffee, pulling out strips of dried meat and some hardtack. "You live out here?" she asked. "Sometimes." He didn't look at her while he worked. "Got a ranch about 2 days north. This is a waypoint." "You came to Red Flint just for me?" "No, had business there, saw what was happening when I arrived, and decided to throw your money away on a stranger." He did look at her then. Those gray eyes were hard to read. "Wasn't about the money." The coffee started to boil. He poured 2 tin cups, handed her one. It was bitter and strong and the best thing she'd tasted in weeks. "What's your name?" he asked. "Evelyn. Evelyn Cross." "Where you from, Evelyn Cross?" "Boston. Originally." She wrapped her hands around the warm cup. "Came west looking for family. Found out too late they were dead." He nodded like that was a story he'd heard before. "And you?" she asked. "Who are you really? People seem scared of you back there." "Colt Maddox. I ranch cattle in the northern mountains." "That's all?" His mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "That's enough." "Boone knew your name. Looked like he'd seen a ghost." "Boone and I have history." Maddox poked at the fire with a stick. "Nothing you need to worry about." But the way he said it made her worry more, not less. They ate in silence. The jerky and hardtack weren't much, but Evelyn's stomach was grateful. As the sky darkened, stars started to appear. More stars than she'd ever seen in Boston, scattered across the black like someone had spilled silver. "You can have the bedroll," Maddox said, nodding toward a pile of blankets. "I'll keep watch." "You don't sleep?" "Not much." Evelyn looked at him across the fire. Really looked. He wasn't young. There was gray threading through his dark hair, lines around his eyes. But he wasn't old either, mid-30s maybe. Hard to tell with men who'd spent their lives outside. "Thank you," she said, "for what you did." He shrugged. "Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen where I'm taking you." "Is it worse than being sold to Silas Boone?" "No." "Then I'll take my chances." Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe. He stood up, checked his rifle, and settled against a tree where he could see the whole camp. Evelyn wrapped herself in the bedroll. It smelled like him, leather and smoke and something else, something clean like pine. Despite everything, despite being out in the middle of nowhere with a man she didn't know, she felt safer than she had in weeks. She closed her eyes. Just before sleep took her, she heard him speak, so quiet she almost missed it. "Sleep well, Miss Cross. Tomorrow's going to be a long ride." She woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of horses. The sun wasn't up yet, but the sky was starting to lighten in the east. Maddox was saddling both horses, moving in that efficient, no-wasted motion way of his. "Morning," he said without turning around. "Coffee's hot. We need to move soon." Evelyn sat up, wincing at muscles she didn't know she had. "What's the hurry? The longer we stay in one place, the easier we are to track." "You think Boone's already following us?" "I think Boone's pride is hurt, and men like him don't let that go." He finished with the saddle, tested the cinch. "He'll gather some boys and come looking. Rather be ahead of him than waiting for him to catch up." Evelyn's stomach went cold. "How many men?" "Enough to be a problem." He handed her a cup of coffee. "Drink fast. We leave in 10 minutes." She drank, burned her tongue, didn't care. "I'm slowing you down. You could move faster without me." "Probably." "So why try?" "Because I don't leave people behind." His voice was flat, final. "Get ready." They were on the horses and moving before the sun cleared the horizon. The land kept changing as they rode north. More hills, then real mountains in the distance, their peaks white with snow even though it was early autumn down here. The air got colder, sharper, cleaner. Around midday, Maddox pulled up at the top of a ridge and sat for a long moment, looking back the way they'd come. See something? Evelyn asked. Dust, about 3 miles back. Her heart kicked. Riders? Yeah. He urged the horse forward, not quite running, but close. We need to make the pass before dark. And if we don't? He didn't answer. They rode hard. Evelyn's hands ached from gripping the saddle, her legs screaming, but she didn't complain. Behind them, that dust cloud was getting closer. She could see it now, several riders, pushing hard. The sun was dropping fast when they reached the mouth of a narrow canyon. Rock walls rose on either side, dark and steep. This is the pass? Evelyn asked. Only way through for another 50 miles. Maddox dismounted, pulled his rifle from the scabbard. And it's about to get interesting. What are you doing? Buying us time. He handed her the reins to both horses. Keep riding. Follow the canyon north until it opens up. You'll see a valley with a creek running through it. Wait for me there. Wait, you're staying? Someone needs to convince Boone this is a bad idea. He checked his rifle, calm as if he were discussing the weather. And you can't shoot. I can learn. That almost smile again. Not in the next 5 minutes. Go. I'll catch up. Maddox. Go, Evelyn. His voice was harder now. I didn't buy you off that platform just to get you killed in a canyon. Move. She wanted to argue, but the look in his eyes told her it would be pointless. So she took the reins, kicked her horse forward, and rode into the canyon. Behind her, she heard Maddox's voice echo off the rocks. Far enough, Boone. Then the shooting started. The gunfire echoed through the canyon like thunder. Sharp cracks that bounced off the stone walls until it was impossible to tell how many shots were being fired. Evelyn kept riding, flinching with every blast, her heart in her throat. The canyon twisted and turned. She couldn't see behind her anymore, could only hear the fight echoing through the pass. Maddox's rifle had a deeper sound than the others. She counted shots without meaning to, trying to tell if he was still alive. 10 shots. 15. A pause that felt like forever. Then 3 more shots, close together. Then silence. Evelyn pulled the horse to a stop, breathing hard. Should she go back? Should she keep going? What if Maddox was hurt, bleeding, dying while she ran away? What if Boone had won? The thought made her stomach turn. She'd known Maddox less than a day, but he'd been the only person to help her when everyone else had turned away. She couldn't just leave him. She was about to turn the horse around when she heard hoofbeats coming fast up the canyon behind her. Her hand went to the saddle. Maddox's rifle was still there, strapped to his horse. She pulled it free, the weight unfamiliar in her hands. She'd never fired a gun in her life, but she'd seen people do it. Point, pull the trigger. How hard could it be? The rider came around the bend. It was Maddox. Relief hit her so hard she almost dropped the rifle. He was alive, bleeding from a cut on his cheek, his coat torn, but alive. Thought I told you to keep riding, he said, pulling up beside her. I was going to. Her voice shook. What happened? Boone brought 5 men. They're down to 3 now. He took the rifle from her hands, slid it back into the scabbard. The other 2 are thinking real hard about whether revenge is worth dying for. You killed 2 men? They shot first. He turned his horse north again. Come on. They'll regroup, and I'd rather be long gone when they do. They rode through the last of the canyon as the sun set, painting the rocks red and gold. When they finally emerged into the valley Maddox had described, Evelyn's whole body was shaking, from exhaustion, from fear, from everything that had happened in the last day. The valley was beautiful in a wild, untamed way. A creek ran through it, lined with willows, grass, still green despite the season, and in the distance, barely visible in the fading light, mountains covered in pine forests. Maddox led them to another camp, this one more permanent, with a small lean-to and a stone fire ring. We'll stay here tonight, he said, dismounting. Tomorrow, we'll reach the ranch. Evelyn slid off her horse and immediately sat down hard on the ground. Her legs just gave out. Maddox glanced at her, then went about setting up camp. He moved slower now. She could see the fight had taken something out of him. There was blood on his sleeve that hadn't been there before. You're hurt, she said. Grazed. It's nothing. Let me see. I said it's nothing. And I said let me see. She surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. You saved my life twice today. Least I can do is make sure you don't bleed to death. He looked at her for a long moment, then sighed and shrugged out of his coat. The shirt underneath was torn, blood soaking through near the shoulder. Evelyn's hands shook as she helped him pull the shirt off. The wound wasn't deep, he'd been right about that, but it was ugly, the bullet having carved a furrow through the meat of his upper arm. Need to clean it, she said. Water? He pointed to his saddlebags. She found a canteen and a surprisingly clean cloth. Working as gently as she could, she cleaned the wound while he sat there, stoic and silent. This is going to scar, she said. Won't be the first. She could see that. His torso was a map of old violence. Bullet scars, knife scars, things she couldn't identify. This man had lived a hard life. Who are you really? She asked quietly. And don't say you're just a rancher. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, I ranch cattle. That's true. But I used to do other things. Bounty hunting, tracking, some marshal work. Made a lot of enemies. Like Boone. Boone's small time. The real enemies are worse. He looked at her with those gray eyes. Which is why I'm asking you straight. Are you sure you want to come to my ranch? It's remote. Isolated. Safe, mostly, but not easy. And there are people who'd hurt you just to get to me. As opposed to what? Going back to Red Flint? Finding another town where I'll end up on another auction block? Evelyn tied off the bandage. I'm not stupid, Mr. Maddox. I know this isn't a fairy tale. You're not some noble knight, and I'm not some princess waiting to be saved, but right now, you're offering me a chance to survive. So yes, I'm sure. He smiled then, a real one this time, small but genuine. Fair enough. And it's just Colt. Nobody calls me Mr. Maddox except people trying to sell me things. Colt, then. She sat back, her work done. Thank you. Again. Stop thanking me. You'll get tired of it. He pulled his shirt back on, wincing slightly. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's the last push, and it's all uphill. This time he did sleep, or at least rested, his back against a tree, rifle across his lap. Evelyn watched him for a while, this dangerous stranger who'd upended her life in a day. She should be terrified. Probably would be if she had the energy for it. Instead, she just felt numb and grateful and confused all at once. The stars came out again. The fire crackled. Somewhere in the darkness, an owl called. And Evelyn Cross, formerly of Boston, late of nowhere, fell asleep wondering what kind of life waited for her in the mountains. Morning came cold and bright. Evelyn woke to find Colt already up, the horses saddled and ready. Sleep all right? He asked. Better than I have in weeks. It was true. Despite everything, despite sleeping on the ground in the middle of nowhere, she'd slept hard. They ate a quick breakfast, more jerky, some dried fruit, and were riding before the sun had burned off the frost. The land tilted upward now, into the mountains proper. Pine trees closed in around them, tall and dark and whispering in the wind. The air smelled sharp and clean, nothing like the dust and decay of Red Flint. Around noon, they crested a ridge, and Colt pulled up. There, he said, pointing. Below them, nestled in a valley between steep mountains, was a ranch. But it wasn't what Evelyn had expected. She'd pictured a small cabin, maybe a barn, a few scattered cattle, rough living for a rough man. Instead, she saw a sprawling complex, a large main house built of logs and stone with a wide porch and a stone chimney. Multiple barns, all in good repair, corrals with horses, expensive-looking horses. And beyond that, in the valley, hundreds of cattle grazing in fenced pastures. This wasn't a ranch, this was an empire. That's yours? She asked. Silver Creek Ridge. There was something in his voice, pride maybe. Home. They rode down the winding trail toward the ranch. As they got closer, Evelyn could see more details. The buildings were well maintained, the fences straight and strong. This place had money behind it, serious money. A man came out of the barn as they approached, older, weathered, with a gray beard and suspicious eyes. Colt, he said, nodding, wasn't expecting you back so soon. Had to cut Red Flint short. Got company. Colt dismounted, helped Evelyn down. Tom, this is Evelyn Cross. She'll be staying with us for a while. Evelyn, Tom Harris. He runs the place when I'm not here. Tom looked at Evelyn with frank curiosity. "Ma'am, welcome to Silver Creek." "Thank you." She felt suddenly self-conscious in her dirty, torn dress, Colt's two large coats still wrapped around her shoulders. "Get her settled in the main house," Colt told Tom. "Guest room on the second floor. And Tom, we might have trouble following us." Tom's expression hardened. "What kind of trouble?" "Boone kind." "Ah, hell." Tom spat into the dirt. "How many?" "He had 5 or 6 in the canyon. I dropped 2. Figure he'll need to gather reinforcements before he tries anything stupid." "You hope." "I hope." Colt turned to Evelyn. "Tom will show you around. I need to check the stock, make sure everything's secure." He walked away before she could respond, heading toward the barns with that long, easy stride. Tom watched him go, shook his head. "That man collects trouble like some folks collect stamps. Come on, Miss Cross, let's get you inside." The main house was even more impressive up close. The front door was solid oak, with iron hinges that looked hand-forged. Inside, the main room had a massive stone fireplace, comfortable-looking furniture, and walls lined with bookshelves. Books. Evelyn hadn't expected books. "Upstairs," Tom said, leading her to a wide staircase. "Colt doesn't use most of these rooms. Says a man doesn't need that much space. But he keeps them ready anyway." The guest room was simple but clean, a large bed with a real mattress, a washstand with a basin and pitcher, a wardrobe, and a window that looked out over the valley. "There's a bathhouse out back," Tom said. "Get you some hot water if you want to clean up. And I'll find you some proper clothes. We had a cook here a few years back, about your size. She left some things." Evelyn sat on the bed, which was the most comfortable surface she'd touched in months. "Tom, what is this place really?" He leaned against the doorframe, considering her. "What did Colt tell you?" "That he ranches cattle." "That's true. He does." Tom scratched his beard. "But that ain't all of it. This ranch has been in his family for 3 generations. His grandfather started it, his father expanded it. Colt made it into something bigger. Smartest cattle operation in the territory. He buys low, sells high, and knows every buyer from here to Kansas City." "That explains the money. Some of it. The rest, well, that's Colt's business, not mine to tell." Tom straightened up. "All you need to know is this is a good place, Miss Cross. Safe. Colt might be hard, but he's fair. You'll be treated right here." After he left, Evelyn sat in the quiet room for a long time, trying to process everything that had happened. 2 days ago, she'd been on an auction block, terrified and alone. Now she was in a mountain ranch that looked like it belonged in a storybook, being protected by a man who seemed to walk with violence like it was a loyal dog. None of it made sense, but then nothing had made sense since she'd left Boston. She looked out the window at the valley below, cattle grazing, mountains standing guard, and somewhere out there, Colt Maddox checking fences and preparing for a war that hadn't started yet but was definitely coming. Evelyn Cross had no idea what happened next, but for the first time in a long time, she wanted to find out. The hot water in the bathhouse felt like a miracle. Evelyn sank into the wooden tub and scrubbed away 3 weeks of red flint, the dust, the fear, the feeling of those ropes cutting into her wrists. When she finally climbed out, her skin was pink and raw but clean. Tom had left clothes folded on a chair outside the bathhouse. A simple work dress and faded blue sturdy boots that were only slightly too large, and undergarments that had seen better days but were whole and clean. Evelyn dressed quickly, braided her wet hair, and stood there for a moment feeling almost human again. When she returned to the main house, she found Colt in what appeared to be an office, a room off the main hall lined with ledgers and maps. He'd changed clothes too, wearing a clean shirt with the sleeves rolled up. The bandage on his arm showed white against his tanned skin. "Feel better?" he asked without looking up from the papers spread across his desk. "Much, thank you." "Tom get you settled?" "Yes." She hesitated in the doorway, not sure if she should enter. "He mentioned you might have trouble coming, from Boone." "Might, probably will." Colt made a note on one of the papers. "Boone's stupid, but he's not suicidal. He'll wait, gather men, plan it out. Gives us time to prepare." "Prepare how?" Now he did look up, studying her face. "You really want to know, or are you just being polite?" "I want to know. This is my life too now, apparently. Something shifted in his expression. Approval, maybe. He stood, came around the desk. Come on, I'll show you. He led her outside, past the barns to where the valley opened up. The late afternoon sun painted everything gold. Cattle dotted the grassland, hundreds of them, all healthy and well fed. Silver Creek Ridge runs about 15,000 acres, Colt said. Most of it's grazing land. We run about 2,000 head of cattle, sell them at market twice a year. Good money in beef right now. That's a lot of cattle. It's a lot of work. Got 12 men working here full-time, another 6 seasonal. Tom manages the day-to-day operations. I handle the business side, contracts, sales, new stock. Evelyn looked at the valley, the mountains, the sheer scale of it. Your family built all this? My grandfather started with 200 acres and 20 head of cattle. My father expanded it, made smart deals, bought out failing ranches during the lean years. By the time I inherited, it was already substantial. He turned back toward the house. I just kept it going. Just? She laughed, a sharp sound. You talk about an empire like it's nothing. It's land and cattle, Evelyn. It's not magic. He walked back toward the house, his stride long and purposeful. Come on, getting dark soon. That first dinner at Silver Creek Ridge was strange and ordinary all at once. Tom cooked, beef stew with actual vegetables, fresh bread, coffee that didn't taste like mud. They ate at a rough wooden table in the kitchen, the 3 of them, while the last light faded outside. How long have you worked here? Evelyn asked Tom. Going on 12 years now. Signed on when Colt's father was still running things. Tom sopped up stew with his bread. Good work? Good pay? And Colt here doesn't ask questions about a man's past. That's worth something, Colt snorted. You make it sound like you're running from something. Aren't we all running from something? Tom shot back. After dinner, Colt excused himself to check the perimeter, whatever that meant, and Tom started cleaning up. Evelyn helped without asking, washing dishes in a basin while Tom dried. He's different with you, Tom said quietly. What do you mean? Colt. Normally he's... Tom searched for words. Harder, colder. Doesn't explain things or show people around. But with you, he's trying. Makes me wonder why. I have no idea. Evelyn scrubbed at a stubborn spot on a plate. I'm just some woman he bought off an auction block. Nobody's just anything to Colt. If he brought you here, there's a reason. Tom set down his towel. Fair warning, Miss Cross. This place isn't always peaceful. We get rustlers sometimes. Bandits. Once had a bear take out half a calf pen before we could shoot it. And now with Boone coming, I understand. Do you? Tom's eyes were kind but serious. Because I've seen what men like Boone do when they want revenge. It ain't pretty. Evelyn set down the plate she'd been washing. Her hands were shaking slightly. I spent 3 weeks in Red Flint, Mr. Harris. I know exactly what men like Boone are capable of. That's why I'm here instead of there. Tom nodded slowly. All right then, just wanted to make sure you knew what you were getting into. But she didn't. Not really. She was starting to realize that. The first week passed in a strange rhythm. Colt was up before dawn every day, out checking cattle or riding the fence lines. Tom kept the ranch running with quiet efficiency. And Evelyn didn't know what to do with herself. She'd expected to be put to work immediately, cooking, cleaning, something to earn her keep. Instead, Colt told her to rest, heal, get used to the altitude. Altitude? She'd asked. We're at 7,000 feet. Takes time for your body to adjust. Push too hard, too fast, you'll wear yourself out. So she rested, explored the house, read books from Colt's surprisingly extensive library, mostly histories and cattle management manuals, but also some novels, poetry, things she wouldn't have expected. On the 4th day, she was sitting on the porch when Colt rode up, dismounted, and climbed the steps. He looked tired, dirt on his clothes and a cut healing on his jaw from the canyon fight. Can I ask you something? She said. Sure. What do you want from me? He paused, one hand on the porch railing. What do you mean? I mean, you bought me. You brought me here. You're feeding me, housing me, asking nothing in return. Men don't do that without wanting something. She kept her voice level, but her heart was racing. So what is it? What do you want? Colt was quiet for a long moment. Then he sat down on the porch steps, his back to her. I want you to have a choice. that's all. A choice about what? About your life, where you go, what you do. He stared out at the valley. When winter breaks and the passes open up, if you want to leave, I'll give you money for travel. A horse, whatever you need to make a new start somewhere else. But if you want to stay, you can work here, learn the ranch, earn a real wage. That's it? That's it. He turned to look at her. I'm not a saint, Evelyn. I've done things I'm not proud of. Killed men, broken laws, but I don't own people. Never have, never will. You're free here. You just have to decide what you want to do with that freedom. She believed him, which was perhaps the strangest thing of all. I want to learn, she said. Learn what? Everything. How to survive out here. How to ride, shoot, whatever it takes. She leaned forward. I'm tired of being helpless, tired of depending on other people's mercy. If I'm going to be free, I need to know how to protect that freedom. Colt smiled, that rare, genuine smile that changed his whole face. All right then. We start tomorrow. He kept his word. The next morning, he woke her before dawn. Get dressed, warm clothes, we're riding. She followed him out to the barn, where he'd already saddled 2 horses, his big roan and a smaller bay mare. This is Juniper, he said, patting the mare's neck. She's steady, smart, doesn't spook easy. Good horse for learning. I don't know how to ride. I know. That's why we're here. He showed her how to mount, how to hold the reins, how to sit in the saddle without gripping so hard her legs cramped. Don't fight her. Horses know when you're scared, and they'll take advantage. Be firm, but calm. The first hour was terrifying. Evelyn felt like she was going to fall off with every step. But Colt was patient, riding beside her, correcting her posture, showing her how to communicate with the horse through pressure and movement. By the time they returned to the ranch, her legs were jelly and her back ached. But she'd managed to ride in a wide circle around the main pasture without falling off. Good, Colt said, helping her dismount. Tomorrow, we'll go farther. And they did. Every morning they rode. First around the ranch, then out into the valley, then up into the foothills. Evelyn's body protested every day, but slowly, grudgingly, it adapted. She learned to move with the horse instead of against it. Learned to read the land, spot good grass from bad, see where water ran even when the creeks were dry. Colt didn't talk much while they rode, but when he did, he taught. Pointed out tracks, deer, elk, bear, wolf. Showed her which plants were edible and which would kill you. Explained how weather worked in the mountains, how you could read a storm coming by watching the clouds over the peaks. You grew up here? She asked one morning as they paused to let the horses drink from a stream. Born in that house. Never lived anywhere else. He dismounted, filled his canteen. My mother died when I was 10. Father raised me and my brother alone. You have a brother? Had. Something closed off in his face. He died 5 years ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. You didn't know him. Colt stood, capped the canteen. Come on. Want to show you something. He led her up a steep trail to a rocky outcrop that overlooked the entire valley. From up there, Silver Creek Ridge looked like a painting. The house, the barns, the cattle scattered like toys across the green. My grandfather used to bring me up here, Colt said. Told me that if I could see all of something, I could protect it. Know every inch of this land, he said, and nobody can take it from you. Did it work? Mostly. He looked at her. People tried, still do, but the land's still here, and so am I. On the 10th day, Colt brought out the rifles. They set up targets behind the barn, old bottles lined up on fence posts. He handed her a Winchester, showed her how to hold it, how to sight down the barrel. Guns are tools, he said. They're not magic and they're not evil. They're just tools. You respect them, learn to use them right, they'll keep you alive. Use them wrong, and you'll kill yourself or someone you don't mean to. The first time she fired, the recoil nearly knocked her over. The bullet went wide, shattering dirt 10 feet from the target. Colt didn't laugh, just adjusted her stance, her grip. Try again. It took 20 shots before she hit a bottle. When it exploded in a spray of glass, she felt a surge of fierce satisfaction. Good, Colt said. Again. By the end of the afternoon, she could hit 3 out of 5 bottles. Her shoulder was bruised from the recoil, her ears ringing, but she felt powerful in a way she never had before. Same time tomorrow, Colt told her. Practice until it's muscle memory. The days fell into a pattern. Morning rides, afternoon shooting practice, evening chores, feeding horses, checking fences, learning how to mend tack and rope. Hard work. All of it. But honest work. Work that meant something. And slowly, without meaning to, Evelyn began to change. Her hands developed calluses. Her body got stronger, leaner. She could ride for hours without getting sore, could hit targets without thinking about it. The frightened girl who'd stood on that auction platform was still there somewhere, but she was buried under layers of muscle and skill and growing confidence. Tom noticed. "You're looking more like a ranch hand every day," he said one evening at dinner. "Is that a compliment? Coming from me?" "Yes, ma'am." Colt said nothing, but she caught him watching her sometimes with an expression she couldn't quite read. 3 weeks after arriving at Silver Creek Ridge, the first snow came. Evelyn woke to silence, that particular quiet that meant the world was buried under white. She looked out her window and saw the valley transformed, every fence post wearing a cap of snow, the mountains invisible behind falling flakes. At breakfast, Colt was already making plans. "Storm's going to hit hard. Need to bring the cattle closer, make sure the barns are secure." "I'll help," Evelyn said. He looked at her. "You sure? This isn't practice. It's going to be cold, hard work." "I'm sure." So she bundled up in the warmest clothes she could find, a heavy coat Tom dug out from somewhere, gloves, a hat that came down over her ears, and followed Colt out into the storm. It was brutal. The wind cut through her clothes like knives. Snow stung her face, made it hard to see more than a few feet ahead, but Colt moved through it like it was nothing, and Evelyn gritted her teeth and kept up. They worked for hours, herding cattle toward the lower pastures where they'd be protected from the worst of the wind. The animals were stubborn, fighting the direction Evelyn tried to push them, but she learned fast where to position herself, how to use the horse to guide them, when to shout, and when to stay quiet. By the time they finished, she was soaked through and shivering, but the cattle were safe. Back at the house, Tom had hot coffee waiting. Evelyn wrapped her frozen hands around the cup and thought she'd never tasted anything better. "Good work out there," Colt said. "I didn't do much." "You kept up. That's more than most people could do their first time." He peeled off his wet coat. "Storm like this, we'll be snowed in for a few days at least. Good thing we stocked up." Being snowed in at Silver Creek Ridge wasn't what Evelyn expected. She'd thought it would feel claustrophobic, trapped. Instead, it felt safe. The world outside might be hostile and frozen, but inside the house, fires burned and food was plentiful. She spent the time reading, learning to cook from Tom, and talking with Colt in the evenings after the work was done. That was when she started to see past the hard exterior to the man underneath. He was educated, had read more books than most college professors, could quote Shakespeare and discuss philosophy and argue about whether the railroads were good for the West or destroying it. "My mother was a teacher," he explained one night, "back east before she married my father. She insisted we learn to read, write properly, think critically. Said the frontier made men hard, but it didn't have to make them stupid." "She sounds formidable." She was. Sadness flickered across his face. "Died of fever when I was 10. My father never recovered. He ran this ranch until the day he died, but part of him died with her." "And your brother?" Colt was quiet for a long time, staring into the fire. Evelyn thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My brother was everything I wasn't. Charming, friendly, everyone loved him. He had plans to expand the ranch, modernize it, bring in new breeding stock. What happened? He got involved with the wrong people. Men who wanted our land, our water rights. They made him promises, got him to sign contracts he didn't understand." Colt's jaw tightened. When he realized what he'd done, tried to back out. "They killed him. Made it look like an accident." "I'm so sorry. It was 5 years ago. I've had time to deal with it." But the way he said it suggested he hadn't dealt with it at all. "After he died, I took over everything. Broke those contracts, ran those men off our land, made enemies doing it." "Is that why you're so careful? Why you prepare for trouble?" "That's exactly why." He looked at her. "This land has cost my family too much. I'm not losing it to anyone. Not to cattle barons, not to railroads, and sure as hell not to bottom feeders like Silas Boone." The snow kept falling for 3 days. On the fourth morning, Evelyn woke to sun streaming through her window and the sound of dripping water. The storm had passed. She found Colt and Tom in the barn, checking on the horses. Pass should be open in a day or two, Tom was saying. If Boone's smart, he'll wait until spring to try anything. Boone's not smart. He's mean and stubborn. Colt ran a hand along his horse's flank, checking for injuries. He'll come when he thinks he has the advantage. We'll be ready, Tom said, but Evelyn caught the worry in both their faces. Whatever was coming, they knew it would be bad. That afternoon, she found Colt in his office again, going through papers. The desk was covered with ledgers, maps, and documents sealed with official-looking stamps. "Can I ask you something else?" she said from the doorway. "Seems to be your favorite pastime." But he was smiling slightly. "Come in." She entered, closed the door behind her. "Tom said Boone will come. That it's not a question of if, but when. And I've been thinking, why don't you just pay him off? Or go to the law? Law doesn't reach this far. The nearest marshal is 3 days' ride, and even if I could get him here, Boone hasn't actually done anything yet. Planning revenge isn't a crime." Colt set down his pen. "As for paying him off, men like Boone don't want money. They want respect, fear, control. I embarrassed him in front of the whole town. He can't let that stand or he loses everything. So what do we do?" "We?" He raised an eyebrow. "I live here now. This is my home too." She hadn't realized that was true until she said it. "So yes, we." Colt studied her for a long moment. Then he stood, walked to the window that overlooked the valley. "We fortify, prepare, make it so difficult and costly to attack us that even Boone will think twice." "How?" "I'll show you tomorrow." He turned back to her. "But Evelyn, I need you to understand something. If Boone comes, if this turns into a fight, people could die. Maybe me. Maybe Tom. Maybe even you. Are you sure you want to be part of this?" She thought about Red Flint, about standing on that platform, bound and helpless, about the fear that had consumed her for weeks. Then she thought about riding through a snowstorm, hitting targets, working alongside people who respected her, about feeling strong for the first time in her life. "I'm sure," she said. "All right then." Colt held out his hand. "Partners?" She shook it. His grip was firm, calloused, warm. "Partners." The next few weeks were spent preparing for war. Colt showed Evelyn the hidden weapons caches scattered around the ranch, rifles buried in waterproof wrappings, ammunition stored in the barn loft, even dynamite locked in a reinforced shed. "My grandfather fought in a range war back in the 60s, Colt explained. Taught my father, who taught me, always be prepared for trouble, because trouble never gives warning. They reinforced the barn walls, cut rifle slits in strategic locations, set up positions where defenders could hold off attackers. Tom showed Evelyn how to reload quickly, how to shoot from cover, how to stay calm under pressure. Not that I've been under pressure," she admitted one afternoon. "You've been under more pressure than most people see in a lifetime," Tom said. "You just didn't have a gun in your hand at the time." At night, exhausted from work, Evelyn would sit with Colt on the porch and watch the stars. He'd point out constellations, tell stories his grandfather had told him about navigation and weather prediction. "You're different here," she said one night. "Different how?" "Softer. In town you seemed dangerous, cold. Here you're almost—" She searched for the word. "Human." He laughed, a real laugh that surprised both of them. "Almost human. I'll take it." "You know what I mean." "I do." He leaned back against the porch railing. "The man I am in town, that's armor, protection. Out here, with people I trust, I can afford to be myself." "And who is that?" "Someone who likes books and stargazing, who raises cattle because he actually enjoys it, not just for the money, who wants—" He trailed off. "Wants what?" "Peace. Just peace. No more fighting, no more looking over my shoulder. A quiet life." He looked at her. "Simple things. But simple doesn't come easy out here." The winter deepened. More snow, more storms, more long dark nights by the fire. Evelyn kept training, kept learning, kept growing stronger. And somewhere along the way, something shifted between her and Colt. It was nothing dramatic. No sudden revelation, just small moments accumulating like snowdrift. The way he'd automatically hand her coffee in the morning, fixed exactly how she liked it. The way she'd checked that his bandage was clean without him asking, how they'd fallen into an easy rhythm working together, anticipating each other's movements. Tom noticed, of course. "You two are getting comfortable," he said one evening while Evelyn helped him with dinner. "We work well together." "Mm-hmm." Tom didn't sound convinced. "Just be careful, Miss Cross. Colt's a good man, but he's got a lot of weight on his shoulders, and people carrying that much weight sometimes break when you least expect it." "I'll keep that in mind." But she didn't step back. Couldn't, even if she'd wanted to. 2 months after arriving at Silver Creek Ridge, Evelyn was out riding alone. Colt trusted her enough now to let her patrol the eastern fence line by herself. She was checking for breaks in the wire when she heard it. Gunfire. Distant from the direction of the house. Multiple shots. Her heart kicked into overdrive. She wheeled Juniper around and rode hard toward home, her rifle pulled from its scabbard, her mind racing. This was it. Boone had finally come. She crested the ridge above the ranch and saw them. 6 riders, maybe more, circling the main house. Tom was pinned down in the barn, returning fire. But she couldn't see Colt anywhere. Fear turned her blood cold. Where was he? Then she saw movement on the house roof. Colt, lying flat, rifle aimed. He fired, and one of the riders went down. The attackers hadn't seen Evelyn yet. She was above them, had the high ground and the element of surprise. Everything Colt had taught her clicked into place. She dismounted, found a stable position behind rocks, and sighted down her rifle at the nearest rider. Her hands were steady. Her breathing was calm. She fired. The rider jerked, slumped in his saddle. His horse panicked, bolted. Now they knew she was there. 2 of them turned toward her position, firing wildly. Bullets pinged off the rocks, but she was well covered. She fired again. Missed, adjusted, fired. Another rider down. From the house, Colt's rifle spoke again and again. Tom emerged from the barn with a shotgun. The attackers, suddenly caught in a crossfire, began to retreat. One of them, a big man on a black horse, turned back toward Evelyn's position. Even from a distance, she recognized him. Silas Boone. He raised his rifle, aimed directly at her. Time seemed to slow. Evelyn could see his finger on the trigger, could see the hatred in his face. Then Colt's shot took him in the shoulder, spinning him in the saddle. Boone screamed, dropped his rifle, grabbed his reins with his good hand and spurred his horse away. The remaining attackers followed, leaving 2 bodies in the dirt. Silence settled over the ranch like fresh snow. Evelyn stood on shaking legs and made her way down the slope to the house. Colt was already climbing down from the roof, moving fast despite the height. He reached her just as her knees gave out. "I've got you." His arms were around her, solid and warm. "You're all right. You did good. You did so good." She was shaking now, adrenaline crashing through her system. "I killed someone. I think I killed someone." I know. He held her tighter. "It's all right. You did what you had to do." Tom jogged over, shotgun still in hand. "Everyone all right?" "We're fine," Colt said. "Check the bodies. See if any of them are still alive." But they weren't. 2 men dead in the dirt, killed defending a ranch they'd tried to destroy. Evelyn looked at them and felt nothing. No guilt, no horror. Just a cold certainty that she'd do it again if she had to. That night, after they'd buried the dead and reinforced the defenses, Colt found her sitting on her bed, staring at her hands. "Can't sleep?" he asked from the doorway. "I keep thinking I should feel worse about killing that man." She looked up at him. "Does that make me a terrible person?" "No, it makes you a survivor." He entered the room, sat in the chair by the window. "The first time I killed someone, I was 17. He was rustling our cattle, drew on my father. I shot him without thinking. Afterward, I threw up for an hour. Couldn't eat for 2 days." "When does it get easier?" "It doesn't. You just get better at living with it." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "But Evelyn, what you did today, you saved lives. Mine, Tom's, maybe your own. That matters." Boone got away. "I know, he'll be back, probably with more men. But we've got time now. He's hurt, needs to heal. And after today, word will spread that attacking Silver Creek Ridge isn't as easy as it looks." He stood. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we'll strengthen our defenses even more." But before he could leave, Evelyn spoke. Colt? Yeah? Thank you for everything, for giving me a chance to be more than what Red Flint tried to make me. He smiled, that rare soft smile that transformed his face. You were always more, Evelyn. You just needed the space to prove it. After he left, Evelyn lay in bed and listened to the wind outside. She thought about Boston, about the frightened girl who'd climbed onto a wagon train heading west. That girl was gone. Dead, maybe, or just transformed beyond recognition. In her place was someone harder, stronger, someone who could shoot straight and ride hard and wasn't afraid to fight for what was hers. Silver Creek Ridge was hers now. This life was hers. And she'd be damned if she'd let Silas Boone or anyone else take it away. Outside, snow began to fall again, covering the blood-stained dirt in white. Winter deepened its grip on the mountains. And in the warmth of the ranch house, Evelyn Cross finally fell asleep, knowing that when spring came and the real war began, she'd be ready. She'd be more than ready. She'd be deadly. The weeks after the attack crawled by with the kind of tension that made your teeth ache. Every sound outside was a potential threat. Every rider on the horizon could be Boone's men coming back for another try. Evelyn slept with her rifle propped against the wall next to her bed and woke at the smallest noise. Colt seemed to sense it. One morning over coffee, he said, "You're wound too tight, going to snap if you don't let some of it go." How am I supposed to let it go? We're waiting for them to come back. They will or they won't. Either way, you can't live like you're already in a fight. He set down his cup. Come on, we're taking a ride. Where? Does it matter? It didn't. She saddled Juniper and followed him out of the valley, up into the high country where the pine trees grew so thick the snow beneath them was still pristine. They rode for 2 hours without talking, just moving through the quiet forest. Finally, Colt stopped at a clearing overlooking 3 valleys at once. The view stretched for miles, mountains piled on mountains, all white and silent and beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. My brother and I used to come here, he said. When things got bad at home, when father was drinking or the ranch was struggling, we'd ride up here and just exist. No pressure, no expectations. Evelyn dismounted, stood at the edge of the clearing. You don't talk about him much. Talking doesn't bring him back. Colt swung down from his horse, came to stand beside her. His name was Daniel. Danny, mostly. He was 2 years younger than me, better looking, funnier, everybody's favorite. You resented that? Hell no. I was proud of it. His voice went rough. He was everything good about our family. I was just the other one, the serious one, the one who handled problems. What happened to him, Colt? Really? He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, there's a cattle syndicate that controls most of the territory between here and Denver. 15, maybe 20 wealthy men who've decided the frontier belongs to them. They buy up water rights, force small ranchers to sell, consolidate everything under their control. And they wanted your land. They wanted our water. Silver Creek feeds into 3 major river systems. Control that water, you control half the grazing land in the territory. He picked up a handful of snow, let it fall through his fingers. They sent representatives to talk to my father. He refused to sell, so they waited until he died, then approached Danny. He was young. He was 23 and thought he could outsmart them. They offered him a partnership, keep the land, share the water rights, expand the ranch with their capital. On paper, it looked good. Danny signed without reading all the fine print. Evelyn could see where this was going. What did the fine print say? That if he defaulted on any provision of the contract, ownership transferred to them. And the provisions were designed to be impossible to meet. Specific cattle numbers by specific dates, infrastructure improvements we didn't have the capital for. It was a trap from the start. And when he realized, he tried to fight it, hired a lawyer, filed complaints, made noise. That's when they killed him. Colt's jaw tightened. Burned down the Eastern Line shack with him inside. Sheriff ruled it an accident. Faulty stove, he said. But Danny was careful. He wouldn't make that kind of mistake. Did you try to prove it? I tried everything, but the sheriff was on their payroll, the judge too. The whole system was bought and paid for. He turned to look at her. So I did it another way. Found the weaknesses in those contracts Danny signed. Exploited every loophole, every ambiguity. Took me 3 years, but I broke those agreements and got our land back. They must have been furious. They were. Still are. That's why I'm careful. Why I prepare for trouble. Because those men don't forget, and they sure as hell don't forgive. Evelyn understood now. The weapons caches, the fortified ranch, the constant vigilance. It wasn't paranoia. It was survival. Is Boone connected to them? Boone works for Marcus Drummond sometimes, and Drummond has ties to the syndicate. Whether Boone's attack was personal revenge or something bigger, I don't know yet. He walked back to his horse. But I'm going to find out. They rode back to the ranch in silence. But something had shifted between them. A deeper trust, a shared understanding. Evelyn had seen the full weight Colt carried, and he'd trusted her enough to show it. That night, Tom cooked venison stew, and they ate around the kitchen table like a family. A strange, scarred, heavily armed family, but a family nonetheless. Spring's coming, Tom said, sopping up gravy with bread. Another month, maybe 6 weeks. Passes will open, travel will pick up. And Boone will make his move, Colt said. Probably. Man's prideful and stupid, bad combination. Tom looked at Evelyn. You sure you want to be here for that, Miss Cross? Could still get you out before things get ugly. I'm staying. She said it without hesitation. This is my home now. Tom and Colt exchanged a look. Then Tom grinned. Well, all right then. Welcome to the family, such as it is. After dinner, Colt asked Evelyn to come to his office. She followed, curious. The desk was covered with papers, same as always. But this time he gestured for her to sit in the chair across from him. I need to show you something, he said, and I need you to understand what it means. He pulled out a leather folder, opened it, and spread documents across the desk. Deeds, contracts, bank statements, legal papers dense with text and official seals. This is everything, he said. The full financial structure of Silver Creek Ridge, land ownership, water rights, cattle contracts, investment portfolios. All of it. Evelyn's eyes widened as she scanned the numbers. The ranch was worth more than she'd imagined. Not just land and cattle, but mineral rights, timber contracts, shares in mining operations. A fortune hidden in this remote valley. Why are you showing me this? Because I'm not stupid. Colt leaned back in his chair. If something happens to me, and there's a good chance something will, someone needs to know how to keep this place running. Tom's a good foreman, but he's not equipped to handle the business side. The legal battles, the contract negotiations, dealing with buyers who will try to cheat you. He pushed a specific document toward her. This is the ranch deed. As of 2 days ago, it's in your name. Evelyn stared at him. What? The land, the assets, all of it. Legally yours. You can't... Colt, I've been here 3 months. You don't even know me. I know enough. His voice was calm, certain. You're smart, tough. You learn fast. More importantly, you understand what this place means, what it's worth beyond money. But why? Why would you do this? He was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Because Danny died trying to protect this land, and I couldn't save him. Because my father built something good here, and it deserves to survive. And because... He paused. Because when I saw you on that platform in Red Flint, terrified but still fighting, I saw someone worth saving. Someone strong enough to carry this forward if I can't. Evelyn's throat tightened. I don't want to carry it forward without you. Neither do I, but we don't always get what we want. He stood, walked to the window. When Boone comes, and he will come, it's going to be bad. I've made a lot of enemies over the years. The syndicate, cattle thieves, corrupt lawmen, they've all been waiting for an excuse to come after me. Boone's attack might be the spark that sets it all off. Then we fight them all. Evelyn, no. She stood too, faced him across the desk. You saved my life, gave me a home, taught me to survive, treated me like I mattered. You think I'm just going to stand back and let you die protecting me? That's not how this works. This isn't your fight. The hell it isn't. You made it my fight the moment you put my name on that deed. She jabbed a finger at the documents. This is my land now, legally, which means I have every right to defend it. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, respect, something else she couldn't name. You're serious. Dead serious. So stop trying to protect me and start treating me like a partner, a real one. Colt laughed, a short, surprised sound. Then he came around the desk and held out his hand. All right, partners. For real this time. She shook it. His grip was firm, warm, familiar. But he didn't let go immediately. Instead, he stood there, her hand in his, looking at her with an expression that made her heart do something complicated. Evelyn, he said quietly, I need you to understand something. If we do this, if we fight together, there's no going back. Your life will never be simple again. My life stopped being simple the day I left Boston. I mean it. The people we're up against, they don't forgive, they don't forget. You'll always be looking over your shoulder. I'm already looking over my shoulder. At least this way I'm looking with someone I trust. He smiled then, soft and genuine. When did you get so damn stubborn? I learned from the best. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them was ready to name. Then Colt stepped back, released her hand, cleared his throat. It's late. You should get some rest. So should you. I will. Just need to finish some paperwork first. Evelyn headed for the door, then paused. Colt, thank you for trusting me with this. Thank you for being worth trusting. She left him there in his office, surrounded by papers and plans, and climbed the stairs to her room. But she didn't sleep for a long time. Instead, she sat by the window and watched the stars wheel overhead, thinking about what she'd become. 3 months ago, she'd been property, goods to be sold. Now she owned one of the largest cattle ranches in the territory, had killed men defending it, was preparing to fight a war against people who wanted to destroy everything she'd built. The transformation should have terrified her. Instead, it felt right, like she'd finally found the life she was supposed to be living. The next morning brought a visitor. Evelyn was in the barn helping Tom repair a saddle when they heard horses approaching. 2 riders, moving slow and easy like they had nothing to hide. Tom grabbed his rifle anyway. Ha! Colt! He shouted toward the house. Colt emerged, his gun belt already on, his hand resting casually on his revolver. But he relaxed when he saw who it was. Federal marshals, he said quietly. Let them come. The 2 men who rode into the yard wore badges and the kind of worn-out expressions that came from too many years dealing with frontier justice. The older one, gray-haired and weathered, dismounted first. Colt Maddox? He asked. That's me. You're a long way from civilization, Marshal. William Henshaw, this is my deputy, Robert Pike. Henshaw's eyes swept the ranch, taking in the fortifications, the rifle slits in the barn walls, the general air of preparation. Heard you had some trouble a few weeks back. Word travels fast. Word of gunfights and dead bodies always does. Henshaw pulled out a small notebook. 2 men killed on your property. Want to tell me about it? Colt's expression didn't change. They attacked my ranch. We defended it. That's the whole story. The dead men have been identified as associates of Silas Boone from Red Flint. You know anything about that? I know Boone's a violent criminal who runs prostitutes and protection rackets. I know he was at an illegal auction where a woman was being sold, and I know he didn't take kindly to me interfering. Henshaw's eyes flicked to Evelyn. You'd be the woman in question? I would. She stepped forward, chin up. My name is Evelyn Cross. Silas Boone tried to buy me like I was livestock. Mr. Maddox stopped him. Boone came here for revenge. We defended ourselves? That how you see it, ma'am? That's how it happened, Marshal. I was here. I fought alongside Mr. Maddox and Tom Harris. Those men came onto our land with guns drawn, shooting to kill. We shot back. Henshaw made notes. Interesting you say our land, Miss Cross. Colt pulled the deed from his pocket. He'd clearly been expecting this. She's a legal landowner, has been for 2 weeks now. The marshal examined the deed, then looked at Evelyn with new respect. Well, that changes things. He handed the deed back. You're within your rights to defend your property, both of you. So we're clear? Colt asked. For now. But Maddox, I'm going to give you some free advice. Get out ahead of this. Boone's not done. He's been in Red Flint gathering men, talking about coming back here with enough firepower to level this whole valley. How many men? 20, maybe more. Mix of hired guns and idiots looking for quick money. Henshaw closed his notebook. You're good in a fight, I know that, but nobody's good enough to hold off 20 armed men alone. I'm not alone, Colt said, glancing at Evelyn and Tom. 3 people then. Still not enough. The marshal remounted his horse. Think about getting out, Maddox. Take your people, your valuables. Head somewhere safer. This land isn't worth dying for." "Yes, it is," Evelyn said. Henshaw looked at her sadly. "Famous last words, ma'am. Famous last words." After the marshals left, Tom spat into the dirt. "Well, that was useless. Law rides all the way up here just to tell us we're about to die." "He's doing his job," Colt said. "Warning us. Covering himself so when we're dead he can say he tried." "Comforting." Tom headed back to the barn. "I'll check the ammunition stocks. If we're going down, we're taking as many of them with us as we can." Alone in the yard, Evelyn turned to Colt. 20 men. How do we fight 20 men? Carefully, smartly, using every advantage we have." He looked at the surrounding mountains, the narrow approaches to the valley. "We make it so expensive to attack us that even if they win, it feels like losing." "How?" "I'll show you." Over the next week, they transformed Silver Creek Ridge into a fortress. Colt showed Evelyn the narrow canyon that served as the main approach, the same one where he'd fought Boone's men before. They planted charges beneath the bridge that crossed the river, ran the detonation wires back to a protected position. "When they cross," Colt explained, "we blow it. Cuts their force in half, traps half their men on the wrong side of the river. And the ones that make it across, we pick them off from the high ground, turn the valley into a killing field." He said it matter-of-factly, like he was discussing weather. "It's not honorable, it's not fair, but it'll keep us alive." They prepared fallback positions, places to retreat to if the house became untenable, hidden caches of food, water, ammunition, escape routes through the mountains if everything went to hell. "You've done this before," Evelyn observed one afternoon as they buried supplies in a cave up the mountain. "Learned from my grandfather. He fought in the war, then fought to keep this land after. Said preparation was the difference between living and dying." Colt sealed the cache, marked the location on a map. "Hope we never need this. But if we do, it's here." The work was exhausting, but Evelyn welcomed it. Better to be doing something than sitting around waiting for death. At night, though, the fear crept in. She'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, imagining all the ways they could die. Bullet through the window, fire spreading through the house, being overrun, outnumbered, slaughtered. One particularly bad night, she gave up on sleep and went downstairs. Found Colt at the kitchen table, cleaning his rifle by lamplight. "Can't sleep either?" he asked. "Keep thinking about what's coming." "Yeah, me too." He set down the cleaning rod. "Sit." She did. He poured her coffee from the pot on the stove, still hot, which meant he'd been up for hours. "Are we going to die?" she asked bluntly. "Probably not, but maybe." He met her eyes. "I won't lie to you, Evelyn. The odds aren't good. If Boone brings 20 men, even with all our preparations, it's going to be a near thing. And if we lose, then you run. There's a horse always kept saddled in the barn. You take it, take the maps I gave you, head for the federal marshal in Denver. Tell him everything. The syndicate, the corruption, all of it. And you? I'll buy you as much time as I can." "No?" She said it flatly. "I'm not running. We win together or die together. That's the deal." "Evelyn, I mean it, Colt. I'm done running, done being saved. If this is my land, my home, then I fight for it. End of discussion." He looked at her for a long moment. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. "You know, when I first saw you in Red Flint, you looked so scared, so fragile. I thought I was saving some poor, helpless girl." "Disappointed?" "Hell no. Impressed." He reached across the table, took her hand. "You're one of the toughest people I've ever met. You just needed someone to see it." His hand was warm, calloused, familiar. She turned her palm up, laced her fingers through his. "I see you too," she said quietly. "The parts you try to hide, the fear, the loneliness, the weight you carry. You're not just some cold gunfighter. You're a good man trying to protect something you love." "Evelyn." His voice was rough. "It's okay. You don't have to say anything." But he did anyway. "I care about you more than I should, more than is smart given what's coming." Her heart kicked. "How much more?" "Enough that if something happens to you because of me, because of this fight, I won't survive it." "Not really." She stood, came around the table, and did something that surprised both of them. She kissed him. It wasn't gentle or romantic. It was fierce, desperate. The The kind of kiss that happens when you know tomorrow might not come. Colt responded immediately, pulling her close, one hand tangling in her hair. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he pressed his forehead against hers. "This complicates things," he said. "Everything's already complicated." "Fair point." He kissed her again, softer this time. "If we survive this, when we survive this," she corrected. "When we survive this, we're going to have a long conversation about what happens next. I look forward to it." They stayed like that for a while, holding each other in the lamplight, stealing a moment of peace before the storm. 2 weeks later, Tom rode in from town with news. "Boone's moving. Got confirmation from a contact in Red Flint. He's gathered 23 men, mostly guns for hire. They're planning to hit us within the week." Colt's expression went cold and focused. "Good. Let them come." They made final preparations, checked every weapon, every ammunition stockpile, every escape route. Tom positioned himself in the barn with the best field of fire. Evelyn took the second floor of the house where she could cover the approach from the east. Colt positioned himself near the canyon, ready to blow the bridge. The waiting was agony. 3 days passed, then 4. The tension stretched like wire ready to snap. On the 5th day, just before dawn, Evelyn woke to the sound of distant thunder. Except it wasn't thunder. It was hoofbeats. She grabbed her rifle, ran to the window. In the gray pre-dawn light, she could see them, riders coming down the canyon, spread out in a loose formation, torches burning, guns visible even from a distance. "They're here," she shouted. Colt's voice came from below, calm and steady. "Positions. Let them come." Evelyn took her spot at the window, sighted down her rifle. Her hands were steady, her breathing calm. Everything Colt had taught her clicked into focus. This was it, the moment they'd been preparing for. She watched the riders approach the bridge, counted them. 24. More than expected. They were cautious, spreading out, obviously expecting a trap. Smart, Evelyn thought, but not smart enough. Half the riders made it onto the bridge. Colt waited until they were committed. No chance to turn back. Then he triggered the charges. The explosion lit up the dawn like a second sunrise. The bridge erupted in fire and splintered wood, throwing horses and men into the freezing river below. Screams echoed off the canyon walls. The riders who hadn't crossed yet scattered, looking for cover. And then the real fight began. Evelyn's first shot took down a rider trying to ford the river on horseback. The man toppled sideways, hit the water, and didn't come up. She didn't wait to see if he surfaced. Already she was tracking her next target, a man scrambling up the far bank, rifle in hand. She fired, missed, adjusted, fired again. He went down. From the barn, Tom's shotgun roared. Then again. The deep boom echoed across the valley, punctuated by the sharper cracks of rifle fire. Colt was somewhere down by the canyon mouth, and Evelyn could hear his Winchester speaking in steady, measured intervals. Every shot deliberate. Every shot meant to kill. The riders who'd made it across before the explosion were regrouping, taking cover behind rocks and trees. Evelyn counted 9 of them. 9 against 3 weren't great odds, but they were better than 24 against 3. One of the attackers made a run for the house. Evelyn tracked him, led him slightly, squeezed the trigger. He stumbled, grabbed his leg, went down hard. Not dead, but out of the fight. "Reload," she shouted to herself, her hands moving automatically. Eject the spent cartridge, feed in a fresh round, work the lever. Colt had drilled it into her until she could do it in her sleep. A bullet punched through the window frame 6 inches from her head, spraying splinters. Evelyn ducked, heart hammering, then popped back up and found the shooter. He was behind a water trough, visible only from the shoulders up. She took her time, breathed out slowly, fired. The man's head snapped back. He dropped. Evelyn's stomach lurched, but she pushed it down. No time for that now. Stay focused. Stay alive. "House!" Tom's voice carried from the barn. "3 coming up your east side." Evelyn shifted to the eastern window. Saw them. 3 men moving low and fast, using the morning shadows for cover. They were trying to flank the house, get to the blind spot where she couldn't shoot them. She fired at the lead man, missed. They scattered, diving behind whatever cover they could find. Then Colt appeared from behind the house, moving like smoke. He didn't run. He walked, his rifle up and ready, and when the first attacker popped up to shoot, Colt put him down before he could pull the trigger. The second man panicked, broke cover. Colt shot him too. The third was smarter. He stayed hidden, waiting for his moment. Evelyn saw the glint of his rifle barrel poking around a woodpile, saw him trying to draw a bead on Colt's back. "Colt! Woodpile! You're 6!" Colt spun. The attacker fired at the same moment. Colt's shot was faster, cleaner. The man jerked backward, his own bullet going wild. But something was wrong. Colt staggered, touched his side. When he pulled his hand away, it was red. "No," Evelyn breathed. Colt looked up at her window, gave her a tight nod like he was fine, then moved back toward cover. But his movements were stiffer now, slower. He was hit. The gunfire continued. Tom was still firing from the barn, keeping the remaining attackers pinned down on the far side of the river. But the ones who'd made it across were regrouping, and they'd seen Colt get shot. Evelyn counted heads. 5 attackers still standing on this side of the river. Maybe more in the canyon she couldn't see. A voice shouted across the valley. "Maddox, you're bleeding! How long you think you can hold out?" Silas Boone. Even wounded, he'd come himself. Colt didn't answer. He'd taken position behind the stone water cistern, his rifle resting on the rim. Evelyn could see blood soaking through his shirt, but his hands were steady. "I got all day, Maddox," Boone shouted. "And you're going to die slow. Maybe I'll burn that house down with your woman inside. Let you watch before you bleed out." Evelyn's blood went cold with rage. She sighted on where Boone's voice had come from, a cluster of rocks about 40 yards out. If she could just get one clear shot. Movement. A man in a dirty coat stepping out, raising his rifle toward the house. Evelyn fired. The man spun, dropped. Immediately, 3 rifles opened up on her window. Bullets smashed through glass, punched into the walls, tore chunks out of the window frame. Evelyn threw herself flat, crawling away from the window as wood and plaster rained down around her. When the barrage stopped, she scrambled to a different window. Had to keep moving, stay unpredictable. From her new position, she could see Tom in the barn. He'd taken a hit too. His left arm hung useless, blood dripping from his fingers. But he was still shooting with his right, working his rifle one-handed with grim determination. They were losing. Slowly but surely, they were losing. Evelyn checked her ammunition. 2 boxes left, maybe 40 rounds. She'd already burned through more than 100. A crash downstairs made her heart stop. Someone was in the house. She grabbed her revolver, the one Colt had given her 2 weeks ago, made her practice with until her wrist ached, and moved to the stairs. Listened. Footsteps. Heavy boots. More than one person. "Check upstairs," a voice hissed. Maddox said the woman's up there. 2 of them, then. Maybe 3. Evelyn's mind raced. The stairs were a fatal funnel. Whoever came up first would be exposed, vulnerable. She positioned herself at the top, revolver ready, and waited. The first man appeared, rifle first. Evelyn shot him in the chest. He tumbled backward with a shout, taking the second man down with him. Chaos erupted below. Cursing, scrambling, someone shouting, "She killed Roy!" Evelyn fired down the stairs blindly, forcing them back, then ran to her bedroom. There was a trellis outside her window. She'd noticed it weeks ago, thought about how it could be an escape route. Time to find out if it would hold. She threw her window open, swung out onto the trellis. It creaked ominously under her weight. No time to be careful. She half climbed, half fell down the side of the house, hit the ground hard enough to knock the wind out of her lungs. Gasping, she stumbled around the corner of the house and nearly ran straight into one of Boone's men. They stared at each other for a split second, then both moved. Evelyn was faster. Her revolver barked twice. The man went down. She kept moving, staying low, heading for where she'd last seen Colt. Found him still behind the cistern, his face pale, his shirt soaked with blood. "You're supposed to be in the house," he said through gritted teeth. "They got inside, had to leave." She pressed her hand against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding. "How bad?" "Bad enough. Bullet's still in there." He coughed, winced. "But I can still shoot." "You need a doctor." "I need to stay alive long enough for a doctor to matter." He raised his rifle, fired at a target Evelyn couldn't see. "How many did you drop?" 4, I think. Maybe 5. "Good girl." He coughed again, and blood flecked his lips. "That was bad. Really bad. Listen, if I don't make it, stop. Evelyn, listen to me. If I don't make it, you and Tom get to the horses. There's a trail on the north ridge marked with white stones. Follow it to the marshal in Denver. Don't try to hold this place alone. I'm not leaving you. You might not have a choice. Gunfire erupted from the barn again. Tom was still fighting, still standing, but his shots were coming slower now. They were running out of time. Then Evelyn heard it, new sounds from the canyon. Horses, lots of them. Her heart sank. Reinforcements. Boone had brought reinforcements, but Colt was smiling, actually smiling, despite the blood and pain. What? Evelyn started. Watch, yes, he said. The riders came into view, but they weren't riding toward the ranch. They were riding toward Boone's men, and they were wearing badges. Federal marshals. At least a dozen of them, led by Marshal Henshaw. I sent word, Colt said quietly. 3 weeks ago, after his first visit. Told him everything. The syndicate, the corruption, Boone's connection to it all. Sent him documents, proof, everything I'd been gathering for 5 years. You never told me. Couldn't risk it. If you'd known, you might have acted different. Had to play it like we were really alone. He slumped against the cistern. But I wasn't going to let you die up here for my vendetta. So I stacked the deck. The marshals spread out in a practiced formation, cutting off Boone's escape routes. Their leader's voice boomed across the valley. This is U.S. Marshal William Henshaw. Lay down your weapons. You're all under arrest for assault, attempted murder, and conspiracy. For a moment, nothing happened. Then one of Boone's men dropped his rifle and raised his hands. Then another. Then the whole thing collapsed like a house of cards. Men throwing down weapons, hands going up, the fight draining out of them when faced with federal law. Only Boone didn't surrender. Evelyn saw him break from cover, running not toward the marshals, but toward the house, toward her and Colt. His gun was already drawn, his face twisted with rage. You son of a bitch, he screamed at Colt. You set me up. You think you can just... He raised his gun. Evelyn stepped out from behind the cistern, her revolver steady in both hands. Boone. He spun toward her. For just a second, their eyes met. She saw him recognize her, the scared woman from the auction platform, now standing here with a gun, covered in blood and smoke and fury. Remember me? She asked. His gun started to swing toward her. She fired first. The bullet took him in the chest. He staggered backward, surprise flooding his face. His gun slipped from his fingers. That's for every woman you ever hurt, Evelyn said coldly. Boone fell to his knees, then pitched forward into the dirt. The silence that followed was deafening. Marshal Henshaw walked over, looked at Boone's body, then at Evelyn. Clean shoot. He drew first, tried to kill you. We all saw it. Good, Evelyn said. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline crashing. Because I don't regret it. Wouldn't expect you to, ma'am. Henshaw turned to his men. Get these prisoners secured, and someone get a doctor up here. We got wounded. Evelyn turned back to Colt. He'd slid down to sitting position, his back against the cistern, his face gray. Hey, she said, kneeling beside him. Stay with me. Doctor's coming. Did I mention you're terrifying when you're angry? His voice was faint. Shut up and save your strength. Can't. Too much to say. He reached up, touched her face with a bloody hand. You were magnificent. Knew you would be. Colt, please. The paper's in my desk. Everything you need to fight the syndicate. Contracts they tried to force on Danny, proof of the murders, payoffs to sheriffs and judges. All of it. He coughed, grimaced. Use it. Burn them down. We'll do it together. Maybe, or maybe... His eyes closed. Maybe you'll have to do it alone. Colt, stay awake. Trying. Really trying. His hand fell away from her face. But Evelyn, need you to know something. What? I love you. Should have said it before. Should have... His eyes closed. No! Colt, no! Evelyn pressed her hands against his wound, trying to stop the bleeding, but there was so much blood. Too much. Where's that doctor? We need help here. Tom appeared, his arm bound up with a makeshift bandage. He took one look at Colt and his face went pale. Jesus. Help me! We have to stop the bleeding! Tom knelt, added his pressure to hers, but he wouldn't meet her eyes, and that told her everything. The doctor arrived 10 minutes later, a marshal with medical training. He examined Colt quickly, his expression grim. Internal bleeding, Bullets lodged near his spine. Moving him could kill him, but leaving it will definitely kill him. He looked at Evelyn. I can try to remove it here, but his chances... Do it, Evelyn said. Whatever it takes. Save him. They carried Colt into the house, cleared the kitchen table. Evelyn held his hand while the doctor worked, Tom hovering nearby, both of them silent and scared. The surgery took 2 hours. Colt woke up screaming twice, had to be held down. Evelyn talked to him the whole time, her voice steady, even though inside she was breaking. Stay with me. You're not allowed to die, you hear me? We have plans. A future. You promised me a long conversation when this was over, and I'm holding you to it. Finally, the doctor stepped back. Got it. Bullets out. But he's lost a lot of blood, and there's still risk of infection. Next 48 hours will tell. He'll make it, Evelyn said. He has to. The doctor didn't argue, just cleaned his instruments and left. Tom touched Evelyn's shoulder. Come on, let him rest. You should too. You look like death. I'm not leaving him. Then at least sit down. Drink some water. You can watch over him just as well from a chair. She did, but she didn't let go of Colt's hand. Marshal Henshaw came by as evening fell. Thought you'd want to know. We rounded up all of Boone's men. Found documents on some of them, connecting them to the cattle syndicate. Along with the evidence Maddox sent us, we've got enough to bring charges against 15 major players. What about the judge? The sheriff in Red Flint? Them too. This whole rotten system's coming down. Henshaw looked at Colt's unconscious form. He's the one who made it possible. Spent 5 years gathering evidence, building a case the syndicate couldn't wiggle out of. Your man's a hero, Miss Cross. He's not my... She stopped. Yes, he is. Henshaw tipped his hat and left. Night came. Evelyn stayed by Colt's side, dozing in the chair, jerking awake every time he stirred. Tom brought her food she didn't eat, coffee she barely touched. Around midnight, Colt's eyes opened. He looked confused at first, then focused on her face. You're still here, he whispered. Where else would I be? Thought maybe I dreamed you. He tried to sit up, gasped, fell back. The fight, we won. Marshals arrested everyone. The syndicate's finished. Boone's dead. She squeezed his hand. You did it, Colt. Everything you spent 5 years planning. It worked, and... Not me. We. You fought like... He smiled weakly. Like a woman protecting what's hers. This is mine. You made it mine. Her voice cracked. And you're mine too, you stupid, stubborn man. So don't you dare die on me. Wasn't planning on it. He lifted his hand, touched her face. You said you loved me. Or did I dream that too? You said it, right before you passed out. Did I? He looked genuinely surprised. Well, good. Saves me having to say it now when it hurts to talk. She laughed, a broken sound halfway to a sob. You're ridiculous. And you're crying. I'm not. But she was. Tears streaming down her face, all the fear and adrenaline and relief pouring out at once. I thought I lost you. Takes more than a bullet to kill me. Ask anyone. He pulled her closer. Come here. She leaned down and he kissed her, gentle this time, tender, a promise instead of a goodbye. When they broke apart, he was smiling. So, about that long conversation we were supposed to have. You nearly died. You're still recovering. We can talk later. No, now. He shifted, winced. Because I need to know. When this is all settled, when the ranch is safe and the syndicate's in prison and life gets back to normal, will you stay? What kind of question is that? The kind that needs answering, because you've got money now. Freedom. You could go anywhere, do anything. Boston, San Francisco, Europe, if you wanted. You don't have to stay in this frozen valley with a shot-up rancher. Evelyn looked at him like he'd lost his mind. Colt Maddox, I just killed a man defending this land. I fought a war for it. I rebuilt fences and learned to shoot and rode through blizzards because this place matters to me. And you think I'd leave? I'm just saying you have the choice. I choose here. I choose you. I choose this life. She kissed him again to stop any further arguments. Now shut up and heal. We've got work to do. Work? Rebuilding. The bridge is gone. Half the fence line probably needs repair, and someone has to testify against the syndicate when they go to trial. She settled back in her chair, her hand still holding his. "We're going to be very busy." Colt laughed, then immediately regretted it, clutching his side. "Ow, don't make me laugh." "Then don't be stupid." "Fair enough." He fell asleep shortly after, his breathing steady and strong. Evelyn watched him in the lamplight, this dangerous man who'd become her whole world. Outside, dawn was breaking over the mountains. The bodies had been cleared away. The prisoners were gone. The valley was quiet again, peaceful. But it was a different kind of peace now. Not the peace of isolation, but the peace of victory, of having fought for something and won. Tom appeared in the doorway. "How's he doing?" "Better. Awake for a while. Talking nonsense." "That's Colt." Tom leaned against the doorframe. "The marshals are pulling out in an hour. Asked if we need anything before they go." "Tell them thank you, and tell them we'll see them at the trial." "Will do." He started to leave, then paused. "You know, when Colt first brought you here, I thought he'd lost his mind, bringing a city girl to a ranch, expecting her to survive. But you proved me wrong. I had good teachers. You had more than that. You had courage, the kind you can't teach." He tipped his hat. "This ranch is in good hands. Both of you." After he left, Evelyn stood and walked to the window. The sun was fully up now, painting the valley gold. Cattle were grazing peacefully. Smoke rose from the barn where Tom was probably making breakfast. It looked like home. It was home. 3 months ago, she'd been terrified, alone, standing on an auction platform in a town that ate people alive. Now she was here, standing in her own house, on her own land, with the man she loved sleeping behind her. She'd fought for this, bled for it, killed for it, and she'd do it all again. A sound made her turn. Colt was awake again, watching her. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how far I've come. About what happens next." "And what does happen next?" She came back to his side, took his hand. "We heal. We rebuild. We make this ranch into something even bigger than before, and we make sure nobody ever threatens it again." "Sounds like a plan." He squeezed her hand. "Think we can do it?" "I know we can," she smiled. "We're partners, remember? Nothing can stop us." "Nothing," he agreed. And lying there in the morning light, battered but alive, together and free, they both believed it. The war was over. The enemy defeated. The future uncertain, but theirs to shape. Silver Creek Ridge had survived. And so had they. Everything else was just details. Colt's recovery was slow and painful, and nothing like the clean healing Evelyn had imagined. There were setbacks, fevers that spiked in the night, infections that had to be drained and cleaned, days when he couldn't keep food down. The doctor from the marshal's office stayed for 2 weeks, then left instructions and a worried expression. "Keep the wound clean. Watch for red streaks spreading from the site. That's blood poisoning, and if you see it, he's got maybe 2 days. Make him rest, even when he fights you on it, and pray." Evelyn didn't pray. She worked. She cleaned his wound 3 times a day with whiskey that made him curse and grip the sheets. She forced water and broth down his throat when he was too weak to argue. She sat up nights watching for those red streaks, her rifle across her lap in case trouble came while he was defenseless. Tom helped where he could, but his own arm was still healing, and the ranch needed constant attention. Cattle didn't care that their owner was laid up. Fences still needed mending. The winter feed still had to be distributed. So Evelyn split herself in 2, nurse by night, rancher by day. She was exhausted all the time, running on coffee and stubbornness. On the 10th day after the battle, she was changing Colt's bandage when he caught her wrist. "You look like hell," he said. "You're one to talk. You look like death." "I feel like death." He studied her face, the dark circles under her eyes, the hollows in her cheeks. "When's the last time you slept more than 2 hours?" "I sleep." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one you're getting." She pulled her wrist free, finished wrapping the clean bandage. "Now stop complaining and eat this." She held up a bowl of Tom's beef stew. "Not hungry." "Don't care. Eat." They stared at each other. Then Colt laughed, which turned into a cough, which made him wince. "You're meaner than any nurse I've ever had." "Good. Means you'll do what I say." She spooned up stew. "Open." He ate, reluctantly at first, then with more appetite. When the bowl was empty, he lay back exhausted. "Better," Evelyn said. Do that 3 more times today, and you might actually heal. You're enjoying this, bossing me around. Maybe a little. She allowed herself a small smile. You're not used to being helpless. It's educational watching you deal with it. I hate it. I know, but you don't have a choice. She stood, gathering the empty bowl. Rest. I need to check the cattle with Tom. Evelyn. His voice stopped her at the door. Thank you for not giving up on me. Never crossed my mind, she said, and meant it. Outside, the spring thaw was in full force. Snow melting, creeks running high, mud everywhere. The valley was transforming from white to brown to the first hints of green. Tom was in the barn, one-handed but managing. His injury wasn't as severe as Colt's, just a bullet graze that had taken meat but missed bone. Still hurt like hell, he said, but he could work through it. How's the patient? He asked. Stubborn? Difficult? Healing? Evelyn grabbed a saddle. Let's check the north pasture. Those cows were looking thin last week. They rode out together, and for a few hours, Evelyn let herself just be a rancher, checking livestock, looking for signs of disease or injury, planning where to move which herd as the grass came in. It was good work, honest work, the kind that tired your body but settled your mind. You've got a knack for this, Tom observed as they rode back. Most city folk take years to understand cattle. You picked it up in months. Had a good teacher. Several, actually. She patted Juniper's neck. And I pay attention. That you do. Tom was quiet for a moment. You ever think about going back? To Boston, I mean? To that old life? No. That life's dead. The girl who lived it is dead too. And you're all right with that? Evelyn looked at the valley spread out before them. The ranch buildings, the grazing cattle, the mountains standing guard. More than all right. This is who I was supposed to be. Took coming west to find it. Tom nodded slowly. Colt's a lucky man. I'm the lucky one. He gave me a chance when nobody else would. You earned it. Everything you got, you earned. He shifted in his saddle. Speaking of which, those legal papers came from Denver. The ones about the syndicate trial. They need you and Colt to testify. When? 6 weeks. Federal court. He handed her an official-looking envelope. They're putting 15 men on trial. Could break the whole corrupt system wide open, but it'll be dangerous. A lot of powerful people want to see this trial fail. Let them try to stop it. Evelyn tucked the envelope into her coat. We didn't fight a war just to let those bastards walk free. The trial date hung over everything as Colt continued to heal. By the 3rd week, he could sit up without help. By the 4th, he could walk short distances, leaning on Evelyn or Tom. By the 5th, he was demanding to get back to work. Absolutely not, Evelyn said when she found him trying to saddle his horse. I'm fine. You can barely lift a saddle. You're not fine. The ranch is running just fine. Tom and I have it handled. She took the saddle from his hands, hung it back on the wall. You need another month at least before you're fit for hard work. We don't have a month. Trial's in 2 weeks, and before that I need to review all the evidence. Make sure everything's in order. Then review it from the porch or the office. But you're not riding fence lines and you're sure as hell not doing heavy lifting. She crossed her arms. I didn't spend 5 weeks keeping you alive just to watch you tear yourself open being stubborn. He wanted to argue. She could see it in his face, but then he sagged against the stall, admitting defeat. I hate being weak, he said quietly. You're not weak. You're healing. There's a difference. Doesn't feel like it. She moved closer, took his hand. You got shot protecting this ranch, protecting me. That's not weakness, Colt. That's the opposite. He pulled her close, wrapped his arms around her. She could feel how thin he'd gotten, how much weight he'd lost. But underneath, there was still that core of strength. What would I do without you? He murmured into her hair. Let's hope you never have to find out. They stood like that for a long moment, just holding each other in the quiet barn. Then Colt pulled back, kissed her forehead. All right. I'll take it easy. But only because you're meaner than I am. Damn right I am. The 2 weeks before the trial passed in a blur of preparation. Colt spent hours in his office going through documents, organizing evidence, writing out timelines. Evelyn helped where she could, learning the full scope of what the syndicate had done. It was worse than she'd imagined. Not just murder and land theft, but bribery, fraud, Intimidation on a massive scale. They'd corrupted sheriffs, judges, even some federal officials, destroyed families, ruined lives, all for profit and control. How did they get away with it for so long? She asked one evening, reading through a particularly damning set of contracts. Because they were rich and powerful, and the people they hurt were poor and powerless. That's how these things always work. Colt made a note on his ledger. The frontier's lawless, but not because there's no law, because the law protects the wrong people. And now? Now we change that, or at least try. The night before they were set to leave for Denver, Evelyn found Colt on the porch, staring at the valley. The sun was setting, painting everything gold and red. "Thinking about tomorrow?" she asked, sitting beside him. "Thinking about everything. Danny, my father, all the people who died because of those men's greed." He was quiet for a moment, thinking about whether justice is even possible. It has to be. Does it? They've bought their way out of everything else. What makes this different? Evidence, the marshals, people who can't be bought. She took his hand. And us. We're different because we won't back down. You sound very certain. I am. Because I've seen what happens when people like them go unchallenged. Red Flint, that auction platform. Women sold like property because nobody stopped it. Her voice hardened. I won't let that stand. Neither will you. He smiled, squeezed her hand. When did you get so fierce? You made me this way. Take responsibility. Gladly. They sat in companionable silence as the sun disappeared and stars began to emerge. Tom was in the barn, securing everything for their absence. The ranch hands they'd hired, good men, vouched for by the marshals, were already in place to keep things running. Are you scared? Evelyn asked. About the trial? Terrified. But not of the trial itself. Colt looked at her. I'm scared they'll come after you. Use you to get to me. These are men who murder witnesses, bribe juries, burn evidence. What's to stop them from hurting you to make me back down? Me, Evelyn said simply. I'm what stops them, because I won't be a victim twice, and anyone who tries will learn the same lesson Boone did. That's what I'm afraid of. You're fearless now, and fearless people get killed. So do fearful ones. At least this way I go down fighting. She stood, pulled him to his feet. Come on, early start tomorrow. We should sleep. But neither of them slept much. They lay in Colt's bed. Evelyn had moved into his room 2 weeks ago, no longer bothering with propriety, and listened to the night sounds. Owls hunting, creek water running, the wind in the pines. Whatever happens, Colt said in the darkness, I want you to know something. Meeting you was the best thing that ever happened to me. You saved my life as much as I saved yours. How do you figure? Because before you, I was just existing, going through the motions, building this empire but not knowing why. You gave me a reason. His arm tightened around her. A future worth fighting for. Evelyn turned to face him. In the moonlight coming through the window, she could just make out his features, the sharp lines softened by shadow, the gray eyes reflecting silver. I love you, she said. Haven't said it enough, but I do, more than I thought possible. I love you too, even when you're bossing me around. Especially when I'm bossing you around. They kissed, tender at first, then deeper. His hands moved over her body with familiar confidence, and she responded, losing herself in the feel of him. Later, wrapped in each other and the blankets, Evelyn thought about how far they'd both come. From that dusty town square to this moment, all the pain and fear and violence that had led them here. Was it worth it? She looked at Colt's sleeping face, peaceful for once, and knew the answer. Yes, every bit of it. The ride to Denver took 4 days. Colt was still weak, and they had to stop frequently to let him rest. But he pushed through, driven by that stubborn determination Evelyn had come to love and curse in equal measure. Tom came with them, along with 2 of the new ranch hands as protection. The marshals had warned them that attempts might be made to prevent their testimony. Nothing happened on the road. But when they arrived in Denver, the tension was palpable. The city was crawling with lawyers, journalists, spectators. The trial was the biggest news in the territory. Corruption and murder. Powerful men finally facing justice. Everyone wanted to see it. Marshal Henshaw met them at the hotel. You're in protective custody until you testify. Guards outside your room, escorts anywhere you go. These people are desperate, and desperate men do desperate things. We can handle ourselves, Colt said. I know you can, but humor me anyway. Henshaw handed them a schedule. You testify day after tomorrow. Until then, stay in the hotel. Study your testimony. Don't talk to anyone you don't know. The next 2 days were nerve-wracking. Evelyn reviewed her statement until she had it memorized. Colt did the same, though his was far more extensive. 5 years of evidence distilled into a comprehensive narrative of corruption. The morning of the trial, Evelyn put on the nicest dress she owned, a simple dark blue thing that Tom had bought from a shop in Denver. It felt strange after months in work clothes. Restrictive. False. You look beautiful, Colt said. I look like I'm wearing a costume. You look like a landowner about to destroy an empire. Which you are. He adjusted his own suit, formal clothes he hated but wore because the court required it. Ready? As I'll ever be. The courtroom was packed. Spectators filled every seat, with more crowding the halls outside. The 15 defendants sat in a row, flanked by expensive lawyers. They looked confident, unconcerned. That changed when Colt took the stand. For 3 hours, he laid out the evidence. Names, dates, documents. He explained how the syndicate operated, the bribes, the intimidation, the murders made to look like accidents. He detailed his brother's death, his father's struggles, the systematic destruction of independent ranchers across the territory. The defense lawyers tried to rattle him, attacking his credibility, his motives, his evidence. Colt remained calm, methodical, devastating. When it was Evelyn's turn, she told her story. The auction in Red Flint, Boone's attack on the ranch, the connection between Boone and the syndicate through Marcus Drummond. And why should we believe you? One of the defense lawyers asked. You're a woman scorned, seeking revenge against men who sold me like property, Evelyn cut him off, who murdered innocent people for profit, who corrupted every system meant to protect the vulnerable. She looked directly at the jury. I'm not seeking revenge, I'm seeking justice. There's a difference. The lawyer tried another angle. Isn't it true you stand to inherit a substantial fortune if Mr. Maddox? I already own the ranch, Evelyn said. Legally, it's in my name. I don't need his death to gain anything. In fact, I need him alive to help me run it. That shut him up. The trial lasted 2 weeks. Witness after witness testified to the syndicate's crimes. Documents were entered into evidence. The defense fought hard, but the sheer weight of proof was overwhelming. On the final day, the jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty. All 15 defendants on all charges. The courtroom erupted. Some people cheered, others shouted in outrage. The defendants sat in shocked silence, their confidence finally shattered. Evelyn grabbed Colt's hand, squeezed hard. They'd done it. Actually done it. Outside the courthouse, journalists swarmed them with questions. How did you gather all that evidence? Were you ever threatened? What happens now? Colt handled it with surprising grace. Justice happened today. 15 men who thought they were above the law learned otherwise. This is a victory not just for us, but for everyone they hurt. Everyone they would have hurt in the future. And what about you, Miss Cross? A journalist asked. You went from being auctioned like property to owning one of the largest ranches in the territory. What's your message to other women in similar situations? Evelyn thought about it. Then, fight. Don't accept what people try to make you. Don't believe you're powerless just because someone tells you that you are. Find your strength, whatever form it takes, and use it, because you're worth fighting for, always. The journalist scribbled furiously. That quote would appear in newspapers across the country within days. That night back at the hotel, Colt and Evelyn finally let themselves relax. Tom broke out a bottle of whiskey he'd been saving, and they toasted the victory. To justice, Tom said. To survival, Colt added. To the future, Evelyn finished. They drank, and for the first time in months, the weight on all their shoulders felt a little lighter. What now? Tom asked. Back to the ranch? Eventually, Colt said. But first there's something I need to do. The next morning, he took Evelyn to a jeweler in downtown Denver. She was confused until he pointed to the rings in the display case. I'm not good at speeches, he said. Never have been. But I know what I want, and what I want is to spend the rest of my life with you. building something together, not just a ranch, but a real home, a real family. He took her hand. Evelyn Cross, will you marry me? She stared at him, her heart doing complicated things in her chest. You're serious. Never been more serious about anything. We barely know each other. It's only been 5 months. I knew the day I saw you on that platform. Took me a while to admit it, but I knew. His gray eyes were steady, certain. You don't have to answer now. Think about it. Take all the time you need. But I wanted you to know where I stand. Evelyn looked at this man who'd saved her, taught her, fought beside her, who'd given her a home when she had nothing, who'd trusted her with his life and his legacy. Yes, she said. He blinked. Yes? Yes, I'll marry you, because you're right. We built something together, something worth protecting, worth growing, and I want to see where it goes. The smile that broke across his face was like sunrise. They were married 3 days later in a small ceremony at a Denver church. Tom stood as witness, along with Marshall Henshaw and the hotel owner who'd become fond of them. Nothing fancy, no grand celebration, just two people committing to each other and the life they'd chosen. Evelyn wore a simple white dress. Colt wore his best suit. They exchanged vows that were short and honest, promising partnership more than romance. Because that's what they had. A partnership forged in violence and survival, tempered by respect and trust, strengthened by love. When the minister pronounced them married, Colt kissed her like they were the only two people in the world. The journey back to Silver Creek Ridge felt different, lighter. They were going home not just as partners but as husband and wife, with a future to build together. The ranch hands greeted them with cheers and congratulations. Someone had strung up decorations, and there was a feast prepared: venison, fresh bread, even a cake that one of the hands had bribed a Denver baker to make. You all knew? Evelyn asked Tom. Colt sent word ahead. Figured you deserved a proper celebration. Tom grinned. Welcome home, Mrs. Maddox. Mrs. Maddox. It would take getting used to, but Evelyn found she liked the sound of it. That night, after the celebrations died down and the ranch hands returned to their quarters, Evelyn and Colt stood on the porch looking at their valley. Think we can do it? Evelyn asked. Build something that lasts? I know we can. Colt wrapped an arm around her waist. We've already survived the worst. Everything else is just details. Easy for you to say. You've been ranching your whole life. And you learned in 5 months what takes most people 5 years. You'll be running this place better than me inside a decade. Ambitious timeline. I have faith in you. They stood in comfortable silence, watching stars emerge over the mountains. In the barn, horses shifted and settled. In the valley, cattle grazed peacefully. Everything was as it should be. Colt? Evelyn said after a while. Yeah? Thank you for everything. For seeing me when I was invisible, for believing I could be more than what Red Flint tried to make me. You were always more. I just gave you room to prove it. He kissed the top of her head. And you've more than proven it. The months that followed were good. Hard work, long days, challenges that came with running a ranch this size. But good. The syndicate's collapse sent shockwaves through the territory. With the corrupt systems dismantled, new leadership emerged. Honest sheriffs, fair judges, marshals who couldn't be bought. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. Evelyn threw herself into the ranch work, learning everything she could. Colt taught her the business side, contracts, negotiations, market timing. Tom taught her animal husbandry, breeding strategies, disease prevention, when to sell and when to hold. She proved to be a natural. Within a year, she was handling major decisions on her own. Within 2, other ranchers were coming to her for advice. And through it all, she and Colt built something rare, a partnership of equals. They disagreed sometimes, argued even, but they always talked it through, found compromises, respected each other's expertise. The ranch prospered. They expanded the herd, bought neighboring land from ranchers retiring or moving on, built new infrastructure. Silver Creek Ridge became known as one of the best-run operations in the territory. Other things changed, too. The valley slowly filled with people, families who'd heard about the ranch that welcomed anyone willing to work hard, widows who needed safe haven, orphans who needed homes, former slaves heading west for new starts. Evelyn welcomed them all, remembering what it felt like to be desperate and alone. She set up a school in one of the barns, hired a teacher from back east, started a lending library, created a community from scattered refugees. "You're building an empire," Colt observed one evening as they reviewed the books. "No, I'm building a home. There's a difference." She set down her pen. "Empire sounds like what the syndicate wanted. Control, domination. I just want people to have a safe place to exist." "That's still an empire, just a better kind." Maybe he was right. But if so, it was an empire built on different principles, on compassion instead of greed, community instead of conquest. 3 years after the trial, Evelyn gave birth to their first child, a daughter with Colt's gray eyes and her mother's stubborn streak. They named her Grace, after Colt's mother. Holding her daughter for the first time, Evelyn thought about the girl she'd been in Boston. Naive, sheltered, completely unprepared for the world. That girl would never have believed this life was possible. "What are you thinking?" Colt asked, sitting beside her bed. "About who I was, who I became." She looked at Grace's tiny face. "About making sure she never has to fight as hard as I did. She'll have to fight. Everyone does." Colt touched Grace's hand, marveling at the tiny fingers. "But she'll do it with advantages we didn't have. Safety, education, parents who love her. And we'll teach her to be strong. She's your daughter. She'll be terrifying." Evelyn laughed. Grace stirred, made a small noise, settled again. "I want her to have choices," Evelyn said, "to be able to decide her own path. Ranch if she wants, leave if she wants, whatever makes her happy." "She will. We'll make sure of it." Colt kissed Evelyn's forehead. "You did good. Both the kid and the life we built. All of it." "We did good," she corrected. "Together." "Together," he agreed. Over the years, more children came, 2 sons and another daughter. The ranch grew. The community expanded. Silver Creek Ridge became known across the territory as a place where anyone could find a second chance. Evelyn never forgot where she came from. She funded efforts to shut down illegal auctions, to prosecute men who trafficked women, to create safe houses in frontier towns. She used her wealth and influence to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Some called her a crusader. Others called her trouble. She didn't care about the labels. She just kept working, kept fighting, kept building. Colt stayed by her side through all of it. His wound never fully healed. He walked with a slight limp on cold days, and his endurance wasn't what it once was. But he adapted, learned to work smarter instead of harder, passed knowledge to the next generation. Tom stayed too, eventually marrying a widow from town and building a cabin on the edge of the property. His kids grew up alongside Evelyn and Colt's, all of them learning to ride and rope and shoot. The ranch became a dynasty not through conquest but through community. People stayed because they wanted to, because they were valued, because they had stake in something larger than themselves. 20 years after that day in Red Flint, Evelyn stood on the same porch where she'd first seen the valley. She was older now, gray threading through her hair, lines around her eyes from years of squinting at horizons. Her hands were permanently calloused from work. She'd never been happier. Colt came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist. He was grayer too, moving slower, but still strong where it mattered. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. He always asked, about how strange life is, how one moment can change everything. She leaned back against him. "If you hadn't been in Red Flint that day, but I was, and you were, and here we are." He kissed her neck. "No point in what ifs." "I suppose not." She turned to face him. "Do you ever regret it? Any of it?" "Never. Not 1 second." He cupped her face. "You're the best decision I ever made. Everything good in my life came from that moment." "Same," she said. "Even the hard parts. Especially the hard parts. They made us who we are." They stood like that as the sun set over their valley, their home, their empire of compassion and hard work and fierce love. In the distance, their children were working with the ranch hands, learning the trade they might or might not choose to follow. That was fine. Whatever they chose, they'd have the tools to succeed. Evelyn thought about the lesson she'd learned, the one she tried to teach everyone who came to Silver Creek Ridge. You're not defined by where you start. You're defined by what you do with the chances you're given. She'd started as property on an auction block. She'd become a rancher, a mother, a force for change in a territory that desperately needed it. All because a cowboy with gray eyes and $3 silver decided she was worth saving. No, decided she was worth the chance to save herself. That was the real gift. Not rescue, but opportunity. Not salvation, but space to become who she was meant to be. And she'd taken that chance and built a life beyond anything she could have imagined. "Come on," Colt said, pulling her toward the house. "Dinner's probably ready, and if we're late, Grace will have opinions. She always has opinions, gets it from her mother." "I know. It's terrifying and wonderful." They walked inside together, hand in hand, into the warmth and noise and chaos of family, into the life they'd fought for, bled for, built together from nothing but courage and stubborn refusal to give up. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was theirs. Hard-won and well-earned and worth every scar. And in the end, that was all that mattered. Years later, when Evelyn was old and her children were running the ranch and her grandchildren were learning to ride, someone asked her what she'd learned from her life, what wisdom she could pass on. She thought about it for a long time. Then she said, "Nobody can make you powerless without your permission." Not really. They can take your freedom, your choices, even your dignity, but they can't touch who you are inside unless you let them. I was sold like property, treated like I was worthless, but I never believed I was. And that made all the difference. She paused, looked at the valley one more time. Find someone who sees your worth when everyone else is blind. Find work that matters. Build something bigger than yourself, and never, ever stop fighting for the life you deserve. Because you deserve it. All of you. Every single person deserves the chance to become who they're meant to be. It was good advice, the kind earned through fire and blood and years of refusing to quit. When Evelyn Cross Maddox finally died, old, respected, surrounded by family, the whole territory mourned. They remembered her not as the frightened girl on the auction platform, but as the woman who'd transformed a ranch into a haven, who'd fought corruption and won, who'd proved that strength came in many forms. Colt outlived her by 2 years. Spent that time quietly, managing the ranch with their children, telling stories about their early days to grandchildren who listened with wide eyes. When his time came, he went peacefully in his sleep, a smile on his face. They were buried side by side on a hill overlooking the valley, their graves marked with simple stones that read, Colt Maddox, Builder and Protector. Evelyn Maddox, Fighter and Founder. Together. They built an empire of compassion. The ranch continued for generations. The community they'd started grew into a town, then a city. The values they'd lived by, hard work, fierce compassion, standing up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves, became the foundation for something lasting. And on quiet nights, when the wind blew just right through Silver Creek Ridge, people swore they could still hear it. The sound of horses riding through the valley, of laughter from the main house, of two people who'd found each other against impossible odds and built something that transcended their own lives. A legacy not of conquest, but of courage, not of domination, but of dignity. The story of a cowboy who threw $3 silver onto an auction platform and changed 2 lives forever. The story of a woman who refused to stay broken and became unstoppable. The story of what happens when people choose to fight for what's right, even when the odds are impossible and the cost is high. It was a story worth telling, worth remembering, worth living. And somewhere in the mountains, in the valley where cattle still graze and children still learn to ride, that story lives on. Because some things are too important to die, some loves are too strong to fade, and some fights are worth everything you have to give. That was the lesson of Silver Creek Ridge. That was the gift of Colt and Evelyn Maddox. And that was the truth they left behind for anyone brave enough to listen. You are worth fighting for. Your life matters. Your choices matter. And when you find something worth protecting, whether it's land, love, or simply the right to exist with dignity, you fight for it with everything you have. Because in the end, that's what makes us human. Not our perfection, but our persistence. Not our lack of fear, but our refusal to let fear win. Not where we start, but where we end up when we finally stop running and stand our ground. That was their story, and now it's yours.